I rewired my neighbor's greenhouse. Then she asked if I wanted to stay for wine. I rewired my neighbor's greenhouse on a Sunday afternoon, and right when I flipped the breaker back on and the grow lights hummed to life, she said, from the doorway, I opened something I probably shouldn't have. Will you stay and help me finish it? I set the screwdriver down slow. Not because I was nervous. I was 34, single 2 years, and I had been in enough rooms to know when one had quietly changed shape around me. I set it down slow because the woman standing in that doorway was Diane Ashworth, my running club's founder. The woman who organized our Saturday 5 a.m. loop through the park, who kept a spreadsheet of everyone's personal records, who once told me my form looked like a man trying to outrun a subpoena. She was 58. She had a voice that could quiet a parking lot full of runners with one sentence. And standing there in old gardening clothes with dirt on her forearms, she looked nothing like the woman who barked splits at us every weekend, and exactly like herself. Diane, I said, that's a strange way to offer wine. She smiled without apologizing for it. I've never been subtle. Ask anyone. I looked at the panel, then at her, then back at the panel because it felt safer. You said you opened something, the greenhouse door sticks. I forced it and pulled the hinge loose. Then I got curious about the wiring while I was in there. Now, half the lights don't work, and I don't trust myself with electricity. You called the right person. I called the only person who returns my texts before Wednesday. That made me laugh, and the laugh made the greenhouse feel smaller than it was. I finished the wiring in about 20 minutes. Simple fix, loose connection at the timer. She watched from a stool with her arms crossed, asking questions she clearly already knew the answers to, the way people do when they want an excuse to keep talking. You garden a lot, I said, mostly to have something to say. I garden like other people drink. It's cheaper and I look busier doing it. I flipped the switch. The lights came back steady. There, I said. You have a greenhouse again. Do I have wine, too? That was how it actually started. Not a confession. Not a scene. A woman on a gardening stool asking a man if he wanted wine at 4 in the afternoon on a Sunday? I should have said I had somewhere to be. I did not have anywhere to be. I said sure. If I had known that one word was going to take apart the next 4 months of my life, I might have said it slower. Or maybe I'm giving myself credit I don't deserve. Her kitchen smelled like rosemary and old coffee. There were 3 different running medals hanging off a hook by the door, none of them hers, all of them her late husband's. He died 4 years ago, heart, sudden, the kind of death that doesn't give anyone time to prepare a face for it. She poured 2 glasses and didn't apologize for the quiet that came after. You don't have to stay for this part, she said. I know, you asked. I ask for a lot of things. Most people find a reason to leave before the second glass. I do woodworking on the side. I'm used to difficult clients. Careful, she said. I meant demanding. Too late. I already heard the first version. We sat at her counter for almost an hour. She asked about my divorce, my job managing a hardware supply warehouse, my mother, who still called twice a week to ask if I was eating vegetables like I was 19 and reckless. I gave the short answers. Divorce is old news. Work is fine. My mother thinks every woman my age is a liability. Diane turned her glass slowly on the counter. And women my age. What does she think about those? She doesn't think about those. That's the problem. Something moved behind her eyes. Quick, then gone. I left 20 minutes later. At the door, she touched my sleeve, just briefly. Thank you for the wiring. Anyone would have done it. Not anyone stays for the wine part. I didn't have an answer for that, so I said goodnight and drove home irritated at myself for something I couldn't name yet. The next morning, my friend Patrick texted me before I'd even had coffee. Patrick and I had run together for 6 years. He worked logistics at the same company, and more importantly, he was Diane's nephew, the closest thing she had to a son in town since her own kids lived out of state. Heard you were at Aunt Diane's yesterday. Fixed her greenhouse wiring. That's oddly specific for a Sunday favor, she asked. I went. He sent back a single question mark, which from Patrick meant he was already suspicious and hadn't decided how suspicious yet. Over the next 3 weeks, the reasons kept appearing. A cracked pot she wanted rebuilt on her wheel and didn't trust her own hands for. A trellis that needed anchoring before a storm. A ceiling fan that rattled at night and kept her up. Each time I told myself I was doing a neighbor a favor. Each time she made 2 glasses instead of 1. Each time I stayed longer than the job required. It was during the trellis repair that she told me about her husband properly, not the short version. He hated needing help, she said, holding the post steady while I anchored it. Called it inconvenient. I called it pride, wearing a work shirt. Do you do that? I asked. Refuse help. Constantly. Ask anyone. You asked me. She looked at me a beat too long. That's different. How? I don't know yet, she said, and went back to holding the post. The first person outside the two of us to notice was Patrick. He showed up one Thursday while I was at Diane's fixing a squeaky drawer. No invitation, no warning. The way family shows up when they've decided something needs checking on. He stood in the kitchen doorway looking at the toolbox on the counter. "You're here a lot," he said. She calls, "I come." "That's the part that's weird, Mason." He wasn't laughing. Diane came in from the hallway. "Patrick, don't start. I'm not starting anything. I'm noticing." "Noticing isn't the same as understanding," she said, and the temperature in the kitchen dropped by 10 degrees. Patrick looked at me. "You're my friend. You get that this is strange, right? I get that you're worried. That's not the same thing." He didn't answer. He left without finishing whatever he'd come to say, and that silence sat heavier than any accusation would have. 2 weeks later, my mother found out, the way mothers find out everything, sideways and instantly. "You've been spending time with Diane Ashworth," she said, standing in my kitchen, holding a casserole dish she absolutely did not need to deliver in person. She needed help around the house. Mason. That tone had survived my entire childhood intact. What? She is old enough to be. She's 58, Mom. Not ancient. Not confused. She runs 6 miles most Saturdays and could probably out-argue a lawyer. That's not what worries me. Then say what worries you. She sat down slow, the casserole forgotten on the counter. "You've been alone since Rachel left." Loneliness makes people mistake comfort for something bigger. "I'm not confused about what this is. Are you certain?" she asked, and I didn't have a fast answer, which worried me more than her question did. The first real crack happened at a club barbecue, the kind of event where half the running group showed up with beer and opinions. Diane was there in a sundress, carrying a bowl of pasta salad, looking entirely unbothered by 3 weeks of tension building around her like weather. Patrick found me by the cooler. "You and my aunt seem close lately. She's your aunt. I'm allowed to be polite. Don't do that. You know what I mean? I'd rather you say it than imply it." He set his beer down harder than necessary. "She's starting over after Elliot. She doesn't need complicated. Did she tell you that, or did you decide it for her?" "Come on, man. Did she?" He didn't answer, which was its own answer. Before it went further, Diane appeared with a paper plate, glancing between us. "Everything all right?" Patrick forced a smile. "Fine." She looked at me, one eyebrow raised, silently asking if I wanted to explain. I didn't get the chance. Patrick muttered something about checking the grill and walked off, unhappy, unresolved. Diane watched him go. "I'm sorry about that. You don't owe me an apology for your nephew's opinions. He worries. He supervises. He loves me. Those are different departments," I said, and she almost smiled despite herself. "I'm sorry I asked you to keep coming by," she said quietly. "It's making things complicated for you." I didn't answer right away. "At first," she repeated, catching the hesitation. "That's the first honest thing you've said all day. I left the barbecue early. That night she called. I made things difficult today. Patrick made things difficult. You just stood there existing. Mason. Diane, I like being around you. I'm not going to keep pretending otherwise." Silence on the line, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "That's not a small sentence," she finally said. "It shouldn't be. It is anyway. I'm 58, I noticed. My nephew is your closest friend. Also noticed. Your mother already worries. She's not wrong to." "Maybe," she said. "I don't want to be someone's rebound from being alone." "You're not. How do you know?" I didn't have a clean answer, so I gave her the honest one. "Because when I leave your place, I don't feel like I'm hiding from anything. I feel more like myself." She was quiet a long moment. "That's worse," she finally said. "Good night, Mason. Good night." We didn't speak for 5 days. I lasted 5 days because I am, apparently, a grown man with restraint I didn't know I had. On the 6th day, I drove to her house after work and sat in the driveway for 10 minutes feeling foolish about it. She opened the door before I knocked. "You've been sitting out there, admiring your gutters. They're aluminum. There's nothing to admire. I admire quietly. Why are you here, Mason?" I held up a small bag. "New hinge for that drawer. You mentioned it, still sticks." "You mentioned that 2 weeks ago. I work at my own pace. Builds anticipation." She looked at the bag, then at me. "I also wanted to see you," she said, and that landed harder than the hinge ever could have. Inside, I fixed the drawer while she pretended not to watch from the counter. "You can't keep fixing things here forever," she said. "I'm aware." "Are you?" "No, but I'm working on looking aware." She laughed once, then let it fade. "I don't want to sneak around. I said, setting the screwdriver down. If we're doing this, I want to do it out loud. We aren't doing anything. Not yet. That's exactly why I'm saying it now, before it turns into something we're both quietly ashamed of. She crossed her arms. What do you want? Dinner. In public. An actual date. You say that like it isn't dangerous. With us, it kind of is. Patrick will lose his mind. Probably. Your mother will have opinions. She already has several. I checked. Diane turned toward the window, then back. And if I say no, then I'll finish the drawer because I already started, and then I'll leave, and I won't ask again. That answer seemed to settle something in her. And if I say yes, Friday, 7 o'clock. The little bistro on Danforth, the one with the parking that makes everyone furious. One dinner, she said. No promises. Promises before the appetizer are tacky anyway. She smiled despite herself. Friday, she said. Friday lasted 40 minutes before Patrick walked in with his girlfriend Sonia for a completely unrelated reservation, and time stopped being on our side. We were sharing bread and talking about nothing important when I saw Diane's face change. Patrick had spotted us from the hostess stand. Sonia said something to him, probably reasonable, probably ignored. He came over. You have got to be kidding me. I set my napkin down slowly. Good evening. Mom, is this a date? Patrick said, not even looking at me, only at her. Dinner with Mason, she said, calm. That's what it is. You told me there was nothing to worry about. I didn't say that. You assumed it. People nearby had stopped pretending not to listen. I stood. Patrick, let's step outside. You don't get to manage this. I'm not managing anything. I'm giving you a chance not to make a scene in front of a room full of strangers. That did it. He leaned in. You're out of line, Mason. I kept my voice low. I asked a grown woman to dinner. You're the one treating her like she needs approval to live her own life. Diane's hand landed on my forearm. Not a warning, a steadying weight. This is my nephew. I looked at Patrick. I'm paying the check. I'll drive her home, or Sonia can. Her choice. Diane looked between us for a long second, then picked up her purse. You can drive me, she told me. Patrick stared at her. Aunt Diane. She stopped beside him. I love you. I do not answer to you. Then she walked out, and I followed. Neither of us spoke for the first few minutes in the truck. Finally, she said, well, that was elegant. I especially enjoyed the part where the whole restaurant stopped chewing. I laughed, despite myself. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing for other adults' behavior. He's hurt. He's shocked. He feels like something was taken from him. I get that. Do you? I pulled into her driveway and turned off the engine. Yes, he's my friend. I hate this part. She looked at me in the dark cab. Then why keep going? Because I'm not interested in quitting just because someone else is uncomfortable. And if I get scared, she asked, then we slow down. If you ask me to leave, I leave. If you ask me to stay. I looked through the windshield. Then I make sure you mean it. Her hand crossed the space between us, not grabbing mine, just resting close enough that I could close the distance myself. So I did. Nothing else happened that night. That was somehow the whole point. The following week was not romantic. It was missed calls, careful silences, and people who suddenly had strong opinions about my personal life. Patrick didn't answer my texts. Sonia sent one message. He's upset but not done being your friend. Give it time. My mother came by the warehouse office. You took Diane Ashworth to dinner. In public. Small town, I said. We live in a city of 400,000 people. Mason. Word still travels. She sat across from my desk. What are you doing with your life? Rebuilding a drawer. Fixing a trellis. Occasionally having dinner. With a woman 24 years older than you. 23. Oh, good. That changes everything. Mom, I know how this looks. Do you know how it feels for me to watch you do this? I don't know yet. I'm learning as I go. She studied me the way she used to when I was 16 and lying badly about a curfew. And does it feel real, or does it feel like relief from being alone? I don't know that yet either. But I want to find out with my eyes open, not by pretending she doesn't exist. Mom went quiet, then said, then find out before you let everyone else's judgment become hers to carry too. That was the most useful thing my mother had said to me in a decade. So I asked Diane to meet me somewhere neutral. Not her house, not a restaurant where Patrick might appear like an incoming storm front. We walked the river trail on a Sunday morning, coffee in hand. I talked to my mother, I said. Was I diagnosed with anything specific? Recklessness, mostly. Diane smiled faintly. My sister thinks I'm lonely. Are you? She was quiet a moment. Yes, so am I. That doesn't make this fake. It means we should be careful, though. I don't want to use you to prove I still feel things, I said. I don't want to use you to prove I'm still wanted, she answered. and that was the first time she said the quiet part fully out loud. We stopped near a bench by the water. "You are wanted," I said. "I wasn't fishing for that. I know. That's what makes it true." Her eyes went bright, but she didn't cry. "You say things very plainly. I fix drawers for a living. We're not known for poetry." She laughed and sat down. I sat beside her, leaving a small, deliberate space. "Afraid of me?" she asked, respecting the distance. "Sometimes it's the same thing." "No," she said. "Fear gives you excuses. Respect gives you choices." She looked at me then, really looked, and I understood this wasn't something either of us could talk ourselves out of anymore. For the next several weeks, we did it properly. Coffee. Walks. One dinner, 2 towns over where nobody knew either of our names. Long phone calls after 9 at night. We didn't hide exactly, but we didn't announce it either. Diane had rules. No staying over while Patrick was still barely speaking to me. Fair. No using this to prove a point to my sister. Also fair. No calling this simple, because it insults what it actually is. I had rules too. No pretending this is just neighborly help. She smiled at that one, but you're so good at the pretending part. No disappearing for days because you feel guilty. I disappeared for 2. Diane. Fine. No disappearing, and no letting Patrick's mood decide our plans. That last one took her longer to agree to. He's my nephew, practically my son since his own mother passed. I know. He matters. He should. He thinks I'm making a fool of myself. Are you? I asked. Her chin lifted. No. Then don't borrow his shame for something you don't feel ashamed of. She didn't answer that day, but the next time Patrick called while I was at her house, she didn't send me into another room like something to hide. She took the call standing right beside me. "Is he there?" Patrick asked, loud enough that I could hear it. "Yes," she said. "I'm not asking him to leave, because this is my home, Aunt Diane. I love you. You can be upset. You don't get to manage who I spend my evenings with." When she hung up, she leaned against the counter, exhausted. "That was awful. You handled it. I hated every second. Still handled it," I said. "Don't look so proud of me." It makes me want to throw something at you. I'll add it to the growing list of risks. Sunday dinner at Patrick's house, 3 weeks later, was worse than the restaurant, but better than I expected. Sonia tried hard to keep things civil, greeting us warmly at the door, complimenting the dessert I'd brought like it might diffuse something. Patrick chopped vegetables like they'd personally wronged him. "Hey," I said. He nodded without looking up. Diane kissed his cheek. "Hi, sweetheart." "Hey, Aunt Diane." Dinner started stiff. Patrick asked about her garden. Sonia asked about my work. Their daughter, 6 years old and unbothered by adult tension, asked why everyone was being weird, which made Sonia nearly choke on her water. "Because grown-ups are terrible at pretending," Diane told her, and the girl nodded like that confirmed something she'd long suspected. After dinner, Patrick pulled me onto the back porch. "I don't know how to be okay with this," he said. "I know. She's basically my mother, Mason. I'm serious. So am I." He rubbed both hands over his face. "Did you ever look at her like this before?" When we first started running together. That question landed wrong and I straightened up. "No. You expect me to believe that?" "Yes. Because it's true. When we were 26, your aunt was just your aunt. She corrected my form and yelled at us for skipping the cool-down stretch. I did not sit across from her thinking about anything else. This happened later, slowly, years later. And I fought it longer than you'd guess." His jaw tightened. "You should have told me before it got this far." "You're right. I should have told you, not asked permission, told you, before that dinner." He looked away, quiet for a moment. "You actually care about her." "Yes. This isn't just something. No. If you hurt her." I raised a hand. "Don't finish that sentence. Not because I'm scared of you. Because I respect you too much to let you sound like that." He almost smiled. "Almost. You're impossible. I've been called worse by better-looking people." He glanced back through the glass door, where Diane was helping Sonia clear plates, looking both nervous and steady at once. "She's been lonely since Elliot died," he said quietly. "I know. She pretended she wasn't. I know that too. I don't want people laughing at her." "Then don't be the first one in line," I said, and that landed. He looked at me sharply, then down at his shoes. "I need time. Take it. I'm not asking for a blessing." He shook his head slowly, but something in his shoulders eased. The next month tested all of it. My mother invited Diane to lunch without telling me first. I found out afterward when Diane called from her car, half laughing, half stunned. "Your mother is terrifying. She considers that a compliment. She asked if I planned to have you push a wheelchair someday." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. I told her only on weekends. I laughed hard enough that someone at the warehouse counter looked over. She asked what I wanted from you, Diane continued. I said honesty, patience, and dinner without a family committee attached. Strong answer. She didn't smile. I think she smiles internally. Rare species. Diane went quiet for a second, then said, my sister told her something. That Patrick gives too much of himself when he's trying to prove he can survive losing people. I stopped what I was doing. She said that. Yes. What did you say? I said then I won't ask him to prove anything to me. I didn't answer right away. Was that wrong? She asked. No. It sounded like you actually heard him. I think I did. Doesn't mean he approves yet. Does that bother you? Yes. Enough to stop. No. Her breath came through the line, uneven. Mason. Yeah, I miss you. 4 words, nothing added to them. I'll come by after work, I said. No tools this time. What am I supposed to do with your hands then? Figure it out. That night we kissed for the first time. It happened in her kitchen, inconvenient and completely real, over cold takeout and a bottle of sparkling water we'd opened like we were celebrating restraint we clearly no longer had. She walked me to the door afterward. I should go, I said. You should. Neither of us moved. This is where a sensible woman says goodnight, she said. I've always respected sensible women. Liar. She touched my shirt near the collar, then pulled her hand back like it had said too much. I'm scared, she admitted. I know. I'm scared of wanting this and finding out I only wanted to feel chosen again. I nodded slowly. I'm scared of wanting this and dragging you into a fight you didn't ask for. That's not yours to decide alone, she said. No. So what now? She asked. I stepped closer, slow enough she could stop me if she wanted to. Now I kiss you once. Then I go home. Once. I'm attempting nobility. Don't complicate it. It's already complicated. Then don't make it impossible, I said, and kissed her. It was brief and careful and nowhere near enough. That was a terrible plan, she whispered when I pulled back. I know. You're actually leaving. Yes. Good, she said. If you stayed tonight, I'd spend tomorrow wondering if we only did it because everyone had already cornered us into deciding. Then tomorrow, you won't have to wonder, I said, and left her standing in the doorway. I sat in my truck for a full minute afterward, staring at nothing. Then I said out loud, to no one, well done, Mason. You've officially complicated your entire life. Things got clearer and harder at the same time after that. Patrick started speaking to me again, but carefully, like testing weight on a bridge he wasn't sure would hold. My mother remained civil to Diane, which from her counted as a treaty. A few of my running friends made jokes until I stopped finding them funny. At a Thursday group run, my friend Cal jogged up beside me and said, so you're dating club founders now, Mason. Should the rest of us start bringing flowers to practice? I slowed to a walk. Say her name. What? If you're going to joke about it, say her name. Don't turn her into a punchline. The group quieted. Cal held up both hands. I didn't mean anything by it, I know. That's why I'm telling you now, before you do it again. Patrick, jogging just behind us, said nothing, but I saw him nod once, small, to himself. Afterward, walking to the parking lot, Patrick fell in step beside me. You didn't have to do that back there, he said. Yes, I did. She would have appreciated it. I didn't do it for points. I know, he said, and for the first time, I believed he actually meant it. But Diane paid the higher price in all of this, not me. People treated her differently. Not everyone, not loudly, but enough. A neighbor asked if I was her handyman with a tone that turned the word into something smaller than it was. A former colleague took her to lunch and spent half of it gently warning her about men going through something. She called me afterward, furious and tired in equal measure. I hate this, she said. I know. No, you don't. You get to be the exciting younger man. People will smirk at you like you won something. I don't want that. You'll get it anyway. I didn't argue because she wasn't wrong. I get to be foolish, she continued, flattered, desperate for attention. That's what they'll assume about me. What do you think? I asked. I think I'm tired. Do you want space? I asked. I want people to stop making my life a public debate, she said. That wasn't the question, she added after a beat. No, I don't want space from you. Then let me take you somewhere this weekend, I said. Where? A cabin 2 hours north, near the lake. My cousin owns it, owes me a favor. No neighbors, no Patrick, no mothers. Separate rooms, she repeated. Again with the nobility. I repeat successful designs, I said, and she laughed, though it cracked a little in the middle. Okay, she said, 1 weekend. That weekend changed us, not through anything dramatic, through nothing dramatic at all. We bought groceries and argued gently about whether my pancakes were rustic or a warning sign. She read on the porch while I quietly fixed a wobbling table leg without being asked, then got teased for turning relaxation into a work order. At night, we sat outside with the lake dark in front of us. She held her mug with both hands. Elliot was a good man, she said. Not easy. Neither was I. But good. I believe that. After he died, everyone froze me into one version of myself. Widow. Mother. Steady woman who organizes things. Respectable and safe. I stayed quiet, letting her keep going. When I started wanting something that didn't fit that picture, I felt like I was stealing it from a life that was already finished. I looked at her. Dead people don't need us to stay lonely to prove we loved them. Her eyes filled, but she smiled through it. That's almost beautiful. I apologize. It slipped out. She laughed and wiped under one eye. Then she asked, "What about you? What are you afraid of?" I looked out at the water. That you'll wake up one day and realize you liked being wanted more than you liked me specifically. She didn't rush her answer. That's fair. Painful, but fair. I do like being wanted, she said. I won't pretend otherwise. I'd worry if you didn't. But I like your steadiness, she continued. Your bad jokes. The way you don't rush me when I'm trying not to be afraid. The way you leave when staying would be easier. I like you, Mason. Not the idea of you. You. That was the night she kissed me first. No scene, no music, just a decision she had clearly already turned over from every angle before making it. When we drove back Sunday, nothing outside had changed, but something between us had settled into place. The real test came 6 weeks later at Sonia and Patrick's daughter's birthday party. Diane and I arrived separately, since she wanted to help set up early. I came later with a wooden birdhouse I'd built for the girl over 2 weekends and one minor thumb injury I insisted on calling craftsmanship. The backyard was full of family, neighbors, running club friends, and enough opinions circulating to power a small grid. Patrick was better by then, not thrilled, but better. My mother was there helping with the food table. She nodded when she saw me, then looked past me. "Where's Diane?" she asked. "Inside, helping with the cake." Mom's mouth tightened, then eased. "She looks happy." "Was that a complaint?" I asked. "No. Should I write that down?" "Don't be cute." "I get nervous when you're being reasonable." She sighed. "I still worry. I know." But she looked me in the eye last week and told me she wasn't going to hide anymore like she'd done something shameful. I respected that. Coming from my mother, that was basically a parade with a marching band. Across the yard, Cal was talking to a couple of the other running club guys, glancing toward the kitchen window where Diane stood, grinning at something. I didn't hear the joke, but I saw the smirk starting. Patrick saw it too, and got there before I did. "Careful," he told Cal. "What?" Cal said. "That's my aunt." I wasn't. "Yeah, you were." "Don't." I stayed where I was, watching my friend defend the woman he'd spent months struggling to accept. Diane came outside with a tray and caught the tail end of it, her eyes moving from Patrick to me. "Need help with that?" Patrick asked her, quiet, a little embarrassed. She smiled, small but genuine. "Yes, sweetheart, thank you." That should have been the end of the tension for the day, but life always wants one more turn of the screw. The birthday girl tore open the birdhouse and shrieked like I'd handed her a castle. She hugged me, then Diane, then asked, completely without malice, did Grandma, Diane, and Mason build it together? The yard went quiet in that specific adult way. Diane stiffened slightly. Patrick looked at the ground. My mother froze near the drink table. The girl, innocent and utterly unbothered, pressed on. "Are you guys like boyfriend and girlfriend?" A few people laughed, not unkindly, but not gently either. Diane's expression started to shift into the shape I recognized, the one that smooths things over, that shrinks the truth to make everyone else more comfortable. I'd seen that look before, and I didn't want to see it again. I stepped beside her. "Yeah," I said, "we are." The yard went still for a second. Diane turned to look at me. I looked at the birthday girl instead. "She's a very strict supervisor when it comes to my building projects," I told her. "Made me redo the roof twice." The girl nodded seriously. "She's strict." That broke some of the tension. Sonia laughed first, then Patrick, reluctantly, then a few others. My mother looked at me like she wanted to scold me and hug me at the same time and hadn't decided which to do first. Diane's hand found mine in front of everyone. Not hidden, not dramatic, just there. Later, after the cake, Patrick came over to us both. "You happy?" he asked his aunt. She answered without glancing at me first. Yes. He nodded, then looked at me. You. Yes. He exhaled slowly. Then don't make me regret not being difficult about this forever. I offered my hand. I'll do my best. He shook it. Diane wiped at her eye and pretended she wasn't. Careful, I said. If you cry, my mother is going to think we're having feelings in public. I heard that, my mother said from 3 feet away. Good, I said. Saves me repeating it. She came over and handed Diane a plate. You barely ate anything. Thank you, Carol. Mom nodded, then, after a pause, added, Mason can be stubborn. Diane smiled. I've noticed. He pretends he's less tender than he actually is. Mom, I said. She ignored me completely. Don't let him fix everything when all you need is for him to listen. I'm learning, Diane said, amused. Mom turned to me. And you. Don't make this woman pay for your pride. I lifted both hands in surrender. Wonderful party. Very calming. But I understood exactly what she was doing. She was giving us permission to be real in front of everyone, in the only way she knew how. That night, Diane and I went back to her house. The greenhouse light was still on through the window, still steady, still the ridiculous, ordinary beginning of everything. She stood at the window looking at it. You know, she said, this entire thing is technically Patrick's fault. I've been saying that for weeks. He's the one who told you about the loose hinge originally. He mentioned you needed help. I benefited from his good intentions. She turned toward me. Do you ever regret staying that first day for wine? I walked closer. No. Not with Patrick angry for weeks, my mother inspecting me at every family event, and half the neighborhood doing math in their heads. I hate the math, she said. 23 years. Still hate it, she said, smiling despite herself. Why? I asked. Because it makes people think they understand us before they've actually seen us. I took her hand. What would they see if they looked properly? She looked down at our fingers. 2 people who didn't plan this, didn't rush it, didn't hide from what it cost, and didn't let anyone else decide what respect was supposed to look like. That's a better answer than I expected from a man who once called my trellis a structural embarrassment. It was structural embarrassment. Same energy, she said, and laughed, then stepped closer and rested her forehead against mine. I love you, she said. Simple, quiet, no performance in it. I didn't rush the answer, not because I didn't feel it, but because I wanted it to land clean. I love you too. Her fingers tightened around mine. We didn't need to prove anything to anyone that night. The proof had already happened, in awkward dinners, in hard phone calls, in leaving when staying would have been easier, and staying when leaving would have been safer. A year later, Diane and I were still together. Patrick wasn't throwing us a celebration, but he'd stopped acting like something had been stolen from him. He invited me to Sunday dinners regularly now, sometimes even asked my opinion on things, then looked mildly irritated when I turned out to be right. My mother and Diane had developed a strange, functional friendship built on shared coffee orders, mutual suspicion, and endless critique of my work shirts. Diane kept her house. I kept mine. We didn't rush into merging our lives, just to prove to anyone that the relationship was serious. Serious doesn't always mean fast. Sometimes it just means steady. On our anniversary, I built her a small potting bench for the greenhouse. When I delivered it, she ran her hand along the wood and asked, "Do we need to test this one too?" I looked at the bench, then at her. It's a greenhouse. Let's not give the neighbors a whole committee meeting about it. She laughed, and I sat down beside her anyway. People still notice the age difference sometimes. A few still had opinions about it. That was fine. People have opinions about parking spaces and grocery lines too. It doesn't make them experts on anyone's life. Diane and I knew what we had. It wasn't simple. It wasn't convenient. It wasn't anything either of us had planned for. But it was honest. And at our stage of life, honest is not a small thing to build on. I rewired my neighbor's greenhouse because her nephew mentioned she needed help. I stayed for wine because she asked. And I stayed in her life because, for the first time in years, love didn't feel like losing track of myself. It felt like choosing, wide awake, with both eyes open. So here's the question worth sitting with. If the person who made you feel most like yourself again showed up in a shape everyone else thought was wrong, would you have the nerve to stay standing next to them in public? And if you were the one on the outside looking in, watching someone you loved choose a version of happiness you didn't expect, would you be brave enough to step back and let them have it?